Well, there's three big pieces of news. One came out from yesterday that people are still talking about. The U.S. has been downgraded by Fitch Ratings. What does this mean exactly? Okay. But you know what? Speaking of Bitcoin, now Bloomberg thinks that the chance of a Bitcoin spot ETF, the percentage chance of one getting approved is now 65%. Okay, it was 50%. Now they think it's 65%. Okay, Gary Gensler downplaying his role at the SEC. I don't quite get this commission's tactical approval of Coinbase Bitcoin exchange. I don't quite get that. Maybe it's them being the surveillance partner or something. The bottom line is, and let's not forget BlackRock. Okay, BlackRock. So, there's a lot of reasons why, the very first Bitcoin spot ETF will get approved in the U.S. There's like 6 pending. Okay, there's 6 pending, and you got to figure like one. And you know what? I take that back. There might be 7 or 8, but you got to figure one of them will get approved, right? And it will be tremendous. It'll be absolutely tremendous. But you know what? We're not just talking about Bitcoin spot ETF anymore. Now, there's asset managers that follow the SEC Ethereum ETF. Ethereum spot ETFs, okay? Which is, it makes sense because Ethereum is deemed a non-security, right? It's deemed as a commodity. So it makes sense you can have ETFs of Ethereum. Bitwise, Roundhill, Van Eyck, ProShares, and Grayscale, some big players, okay, have filed with the SEC. Although, this is futures. Okay, so I take that back. I thought it was spot. No, it's actually futures. So futures will probably get approved. Okay, and then they will, then they will go for spot ETF afterwards. But you know what? It'll be pretty cool, I guess, to have Ethereum futures ETF. Although I would argue, hey, if you're in this space, then you should definitely just buy Ethereum instead. Okay, but after a spot Bitcoin ETF gets approved, then they'll probably file for Ethereum spot ETFs. So that is also coming. Now, you know what else came? Litecoin. Litecoin halving just completed. The many people, I take that back. No, I haven't talked to anyone that was excited about this. There's some people that asked about it, but, in reality, I don't think the Litecoin guys just kind of gone away. Everyone's talking about, or at least some people are talking about, or maybe no one is talking about this halving event. And basically, just like Bitcoin, they have a halving event. Because Litecoin, in case you didn't know, is a fork of Bitcoin. But Charlie Lee just kind of upped things, okay? The block time comes in, confirmation comes at 2.5 minutes instead of 10 minutes. The supplies increased to 84 million, 4x, right? So it also had to have him every 4 years. Many people thought this would be very bullish for Litecoin, but Litecoin actually dumped like 6 or 7% today. So, there could still be a chance that in a few months or in 2024, Litecoin does gain more strength and comes back. Yes, of course, that's a possibility. But right now, just not doing quite anything, even after the halving event, because everyone is looking at Bitcoin. Okay. Now, outside of these news, I also saw this. Kenya suspends Worldcoin, right? Good for them. Like, seriously, I've been talking about this for so long. Who wants to use this orb and scan their iris and give that information to this project in exchange for some tokens that may be worthless? Like, it makes no sense that people would voluntarily do this. Okay, there's no benefit at all. It sounds like a giant security concern. Sounds like a big surveillance project, really, if you think about it. So I'm glad to see it. I'm hoping more countries also follow. But in regards to Bitcoin, I know we had some volatility recently, right? Right now we're a little bit above 29,000, but yesterday we're a little bit higher, and the day before we were lower. So there is some volatility, but, keep in mind, guys, we're talking about a 1,000-point spread. We're not talking about Bitcoin falling to 10,000, coming back to 20,000, coming back to 29,000. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about just basically hovering between 29 and 30,000, right? And when you zoom out like this and you realize, well, there's really nothing. You can't even see it. It's a blip. But you know what? Look at this, okay? This golden cross has happened. It's on a 3-day scale. And the last few times it's happened, right here, very bullishness. So we just had that happen. And you know what? This is also something to look forward to, breaking out of these ascending wedges. And it's coming because, of course, we are in recovery. Fundamentals have never been better. On-chain metrics have never been better. We're getting closer to a halving event, right? So these are all fantastic things. Well, first of all, this came out yesterday, and it's really no surprise, but I don't know. It just seems like a lot of people are surprised by this, but how can you be? We know the U.S. financially is in a really, really bad spot. Really bad spot. We have over $31 trillion worth of debt. We had to, at last minute, up the debt ceiling because we couldn't pay back the debts, couldn't pay back the interest. The U.S. government was going to shut down. Okay, so last minute, Congress voted to up the debt ceiling, right? So, I mean, this is bad. The U.S. economy, although is strong, you know, the backbone, the Fed, the banks, and how money is being handled in the U.S. is irresponsible. I mean, the whole system is irresponsible. So is it any surprise that Fitch Ratings downgrades the U.S. long-term rating from AAA down to AA+? I mean, honestly, any individual citizen that would operate like how the U.S. operates its own balance sheet, you know, they would be in bankruptcy. They would have a credit rating under 500 or 400, okay? You know, the U.S. keeps printing more money whenever they run out, and they were handicapped because of the debt ceiling. So, but with the debt ceiling removed, they get to print more money, right? So it's like going to your credit card company and asking them to raise your limit every single month and not having the ability to pay it back because the U.S. doesn't have the ability to pay it back, which is why it's 31 trillion plus in debt, right? So this, of course, makes sense. And Fitch Ratings says, well, this is because, yeah, the country keeps asking for more money and keeps raising its debts and blah, 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 right? It's not a surprise. But, you know, the White House and everyone else is like, no, they're wrong. The U.S. is in great financial shape. It's really not. So this is the reason why a lot of us have turned to Bitcoin. You know, I also saw this. The private sector added 324,000 jobs, which is basically double that expectations. So this is really good, right? So the U.S. economy is strong. People are going back to work. But does this mean anything if the U.S. is still going to be and continue to be irresponsible with its money? Eventually it's going to all come to roost, so to speak, right? But it's good to see that people are finding jobs. The job market is still strong in terms of recovery. That's a pretty good sign.